Alright, I'm going to do a little video about 3D printers because what I've been shopping for, this is what I want, is I want one of the fast printers, right? Because I've got, actually, you know, my main printer is, a Robo 3D um, R1 I bought back in 2014, right? It still works, but it's a slow printer. But yeah, it still works. I mean, I've had very little trouble with this thing since I bought it. And I went through a period of 10 years or so, 9 or 10 years, where I didn't use it at all. And I just, like last year, started using it a lot again. It still works after all this time. And it's got auto leveling in it, which works perfectly. I've never had a problem with the auto leveling on this. So it's really been a nice little printer, but it is slow. Um, but that's back when printers were, a lot of them were still made of wood. So, Robo 3D was one of the first ones that came, off out of Kickstarter that wasn't made of wood, but it's hard to work on though if you need to work on it because that shroud gets in the way. Um, but and it's kind of hard to see your print too because it's kind of dark in there. So that sucks. So try to put some lights in there to lighten it up a little bit. I think, but still only helps so much. Now I did buy one of these like a couple years ago, and I used it a little bit, but I still haven't figured out. This produced really good prints. I mean, I bought this for like $120 on Prime Day. Um, and it's a small printer, but it's the first one I ever played with. I've never had my hands on one before. It produced some really good quality prints. Actually, I was really astonished how good the quality was. But trying to clean the parts and get it to be not sticky and everything was proven to be kind of a nightmare, and I just haven't got that dialed in yet. I did buy a cleaner, on Black Friday, but I haven't used it yet, so I just hadn't had time to mess with it. So, but again, those are the only two printers. I did buy a Sunlu too, but I've never used it. On Black Friday as well, like in 2022 or something, and maybe 2021. But I've never used it. I mean, it's because it doesn't have automatic bed leveling and all that crap. So I just had to. It's kind of cheesy, but I still it was worth the parts if nothing else. So I kind of figured I might use it for other things other than 3D printing. But again, I've never messed with it. So, but that's where I stand on 3D printing. I've done a lot of stuff, and everything I do, just so you know, I do not print things off Thingiverse very often, right? There's been a time or two I've done it for like an enclosure for a programmable electronic load, that I bought off Amazon. I printed an enclosure for it that somebody else had done. But normally I design my own parts, and it's almost always for engineering purposes. So, but I'm usually making housings for electronics projects. Is what I'm doing. For various types of things. So I've done a lot of printing on things like that, a lot of different stuff. But I always design my own shit pretty much. And on Rhino 3D, typically, and then I'll export it as an STL. But there are other programs I sometimes use, but it's primarily Rhino. So, um, but it's because I got a lot of experience at Rhino. I really know how to use it. I've used it for since 2006. Um, but yeah, it's that's kind of where I stand. I don't have a lot of experience doing high quality prints though. Robo 3D is good for doing because I'm usually making prototypes and my quality standards aren't that high, right? I don't have a fetish about something that looks perfect because it's a 3D print at the end of the day. It's not going to look as good as a injection molded part. I mean, like I said, just to be real about it, I'm usually trying to test things that may one day be injection molded, but I need functional test models. That's how I use 3D printing, just as an upfront disclosure, so you know how I use things, right, and what I use these things for. So, um, anyway, I will tell you what printer I finally settled on, just right off the bat too, and it wasn't this one. Where the fuck is it? It was this one, Bamboo Labs. I haven't received it yet. It won't come in until July 1st, and this is like June 12th right now. I guess it is. Yeah. But anyway, this the reputation of Bamboo Labs just is sprinkled all over the place in all these reviews. And since I need a 3D printer, right? but I don't need it yet. That's the problem. The only reason I'm even buying one is because of the Trump tariffs, right? And all that bullshit. So because of that, yeah, and a lot of these other printers I ruled out mostly because of fears of quality fade that have happened over the last few months, apparently, probably because of the tariff situation. So if you don't know what Chinese quality fade is, uh, this guy named Paul Midler wrote a good book called Poorly Made in China. That'll fill you in. All right. Um, in short, that's where when a product, Chinese company introduces a product at first, the quality's really good, but after 6 months or sometimes a year, it starts getting worse. So you'll see good reviews on it at first, but then the reviews will start getting worse and worse and worse. So if you ever want to look at reviews on something, go down here on Amazon, get to the point where you see this, no, this, and then instead of top reviews, which is bullshit, because this gives you the oldest reviews, although this has apparently not been on here that long. But always sort by most recent, right? So you can see but how much trouble people are having with things now instead of like 2 or 3 years ago. Um, anyway, that's what Chinese quality fade is, and that's how to look for it. Um, so, but yeah, that's the printer I actually chose um, because again, it's a printer that I don't really need for maybe another 6 or 8 months, right? I am going to run some preliminary tests, but I want confidence that it's not going to crap out on me after 2 weeks of use, right? So this is the best bet I can come up with right now, and since it was on sale for $90 and easy to set up, so I can run some basic tests on it real quick. That's why I chose this versus some of the other printers I looked at. Like this one, I really liked, but I just can't be sure about the quality fade. It's certainly a lot cheaper. In fact, it's cheaper than this even. But let me show you all the printers in my list. Okay, I started with this, and basically, as a guide, I use this Tom's Hardware Guide, a fast 3D printers benchmark that was from, you know, kind of early, a year, but a little over a year ago, right? But a lot of the printers that are on here are still available, but not all of them. Like this is not available anymore. So this is, etc. So, but they give you the benchmarks. And that's the default print speed, which is what they use for their tests. This is the max speed rating. This is the acceleration, which is also really important, um, particularly if you're, for certain kinds of prints. If it's having to change directions a lot, acceleration, will be a big factor. So acceleration is what you're looking for, and the default print speed is what you're looking for. You can rarely, just like they said, you can almost never count on, you know, on running things at max speed because this is what you get. So, you know, um, speed benchy, but yeah, they talk about how they couldn't at max speeds get any kind of good results out of any of these printers, and they tell you what they kind of generally ran things at, but again, that's not going to apply to every printer, obviously, because they say, all right, you know, um, on wear length, inner wall speed, outer wall speed. Maybe they were able to run that, but you know, top bottom speed, travel speed. You know, the thing is they can't do that with every printer on their list. So some of these can't go that too fast, right? So so there's that. So you gotta be aware of that. But on the other hand, this is from fastest benchy to slowest benchy. And Robo 3D R1 is slower than this. I mean, on the slicer, matter control slicer that is used on that, it said like an hour 26 minutes. So, but again, I know its speed is about that. That's the speed I usually run it at. So I usually don't try to dick with the speeds too much, because while I don't need super high quality, I also don't want super low quality either. You know what I mean? So, but at any rate, that's some of the information I used. Plus, I also did a lot of research on Quora and you know, and of course watching YouTube videos. But be aware, when you watch YouTube reviews, most of the people that are reviewing the printers on YouTube had the manufacturer ship them one, usually free of charge, right? But the key to realize is this: is that yeah, the manufacturer shipped them one, but the manufacturer, I guarantee you, damn well knew that what they were shipping to this reviewer works, right? It's not necessarily what you're going to get if you buy one off Amazon. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, because that's not a production model that reviewer was shipped. I promise you, the manufacturer, wanting good reviews, shipped them a known working model. Most of these aren't going to be known, right? So what you see on the review is not necessarily what you're going to buy from Amazon. There's probably going to be a lot more headache to it. So just keep that in mind when you're watching YouTube reviews. Now, I do product reviews sometimes on YouTube, but my reviews, everything I review, I purchased, just like you would. I don't get paid for doing reviews or anything, right? I don't. My sites are, you know, my YouTube pages aren't even monetized, for crying out loud. So, you know, that's the only way to get a real honest situational review, because a lot of the reviewers will be honest about their experience, right? But they did get a model directly from the manufacturer. Okay, so the manufacturer knows it works properly. If you buy one, shit, good luck. You know, I hope you like, you must be, like playing, gambling at the craps table there, because that's what you're doing. You can't really rely on YouTube reviews for anything other than functional reviews of what the product might be if you get it. But there's a good chance it won't be that easy. So just bear that in mind when you're doing 3D printer research in particular, but really research on anything, but definitely 3D printer research. That's a lot more dodgy of a situation. But yeah, anyway, this I looked at. This is the Elegoo Neptune Max, which is on Tom's Hardware, and if you, son of a bitch, yeah, if you look at that, that's up here on the top of the list. Did a pretty good benchy, and if you go look at the results of that test, okay, that was this is Creality, that's Creality, that's Creality. This is Bamboo Labs, but you can't buy this printer anymore. That's good print, but here's the Neptune, and that's actually a decent clean print for the benchy speed they got, right? So that's not bad, but again, I did a lot of research and I had to rule it out due to fears of quality fade or whatever, because I really was interested in this one, because again, I would like a printer that's 16 by 16 by 16 and fast, so that I could actually print, instead of having to take some old, like, VCR, and take the guts out of it and use that as a project case. It'd be nice if I could print my own project case. Then I could make it perfect, because man, it's a pain in the ass trying to adapt some junk case you have lying around to your project. Boy, it'd be nice if I could just print the whole damn thing. That's my holy grail, right? Even this printer probably wouldn't be fast enough to do that. But again, I ruled it out for various reasons, and I'm not going to go into most of those, just at least not at the front of the video. Maybe I will later in the video, but I'm trying to keep this fairly short. This one I really liked. I really liked this Anycubic, because I did, watched it all in YouTube videos. It had some really slick features to it, but its print volume is not much better than my Robo 3D. Um, you know, um, because the Robo 3D, its print volume is this 8 by 9 by 10, right? So I would like something that can print bigger than that. And what I bought doesn't have any bigger than that. It's really just a 10 by 10 by 10 print volume, which I had to Google to find out what its print volume is. That really pisses me off, that some of these guys are really coy on their basic specification. I should not have to go Google it, but you just don't see it listed in here anywhere, not obviously. So I think even if you search the reviews, you can't find out what the print volume is. I had to go. I know I went and Googled it. It was just the easiest way to find out. See, I don't even, I don't have that yet. I won't have it until July 1st, by the way. So, I also bought a pair of these. I thought I don't know much about VR, so I've always been curious. So I would like to try it. So I may end up sending it back. I don't know. I ain't gonna buy no $79 cable just so I can run Steam games on it. I know that. VR Steam games because they do have a number of them on there. I'm not at all interested in their little metaverse or whatever the fuck that is. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, this doesn't meet my print volume, but it is still a fast 3D printer. It's decent. It's not the fastest, but it is a fast 3D printer at 500 millimeter max, 250, default. That's fine. Because again, I still want fast, but this printer does produce really good quality prints, too, just right out of the box, right? That would be nice because my Robo 3D, I've really never tweaked it for quality because again, I'm usually building like prototypes and I'm just interested in functionality and I want the fastest print I can get so I can test whether something fits or not. So I usually, I don't really print high quality prints. I'm usually printing prototypes. And again, you're not going to get that good a quality out of a 3D printer no matter what. It's not going to compare to an injection molded part. A lot of the things I build might eventually be injection molded, right? So I'm not really interested in quality. I'm just interested in functionality. So that's another little way I use my 3D printer that may be different from you. But I would like to have a printer that does good quality right out of the box, and this does. So I did a lot of research on that, and this looks like the best out of the box quality printer. So if I want to do quality prints, I can do that, or if I want to do fast prints, I could do that too. And multicolor prints, I can even do that, even though there are some caveats about that. I mean, most color prints, like if you're printing this bear, let's say this bear used, like, you know, geez, I don't know, 250, let's say 500 grams of filament, right? Well, you're probably going to, in printing this thing, it probably took 1,500 grams of filament to print it because of all the color change. Every time it goes a color change, it has to purge its cylinders. You get a bunch of poo out of it. That's what this little thing is for. That's its cleaner. So when it purges you, when you change color, it has to extrude a lot of waste filament out, and then start printing in that color, and then extrude a lot of waste filament, change back to another color, like this black nose. Yeah, it had to do a purge, and its little eye had to do purge every time there. That also makes your prints take a shitload longer. So I'll probably rarely use color change, honestly, but it's still just nice to have. I mean, there are times that would come in handy, but most of the time I probably won't use it. It's probably better, usually just to print a single color part. Again, if you're doing something like this, that's about the only way you can do it, right? Outside of just getting a damn, paint set and paint the colors on yourself. Um, but if you're doing like functional parts, I can usually print one part of it one color, another part another color, glue them together or bolt them together or whatever. That's usually what I do. But there are times like printing control panels. Man, I would love to be able to put the text on there in a different color. Like a white control panel background with black text, right? Labeling what the switches are and the various LEDs mean, that kind of thing. It's relatively small print, but yeah, I would like to have a printer, but I need a bigger 3D printer for shit like that. Because right now I need to print like a 5-inch by, like 14-inch, faceplate, right? For controls, and I would like to actually be able to label them. Otherwise, I have to go through other way hokier ways of doing that would suck, and I really would just rather print the damn labels on there. Because printing labels on 3D printed surfaces, or on surfaces in any way, even with routers, CNC routers and stuff, is still a pain in the ass. I mean, it just really be nice just to print it directly on there. And that's what I'm hoping to do, but I'm not going to get much mileage on that end out of this, but I will get a fast 3D printer that can do high quality mechanical parts when I need it, and that I love. That's why I finally decided to just go with this instead of some of the others I'm looking at. But keep in mind, I am going to buy at least one more 3D printer, but I don't know if it's going to be on Prime Day, which is coming up within a month, or later, because I am going to look at some more of these printers later. But I probably won't buy this one, even though I really like this one. I love its chamber, right? Because you can start to think about doing ABS and things like that with a printer like that. Now this one here is really good for that apparently because they have a higher heated bed. So this got has some really neat features, but man, for the price, and again, when I was looking at this, it was $559, so they were giving a discount now they didn't have before. But still, for the price, I would rather buy this one because I love the fact this has a filament dryer in it. And let me tell you, I only print with PLA. However, PLA does absorb moisture. It does. And I live in a humid state. I mean, in fact, most of the humidity around here, this is, Oklahoma, but I'll tell you, most of the humidity around here is about the same level during the summer as the Amazon jungle. I mean, we're talking 80-degree dew points. It's awful here where I live, so I hate the humidity here. I mean, I get drenched, just very easily. But anyway, the PLA filaments, they will turn brittle if they absorb too much moisture. And if you have them loaded up in your printer, even for a couple of days, and you didn't take your filament out, the filament will literally snap. It starts getting hard, and it'll snap. It'll snap into several pieces just sitting there. So yeah, I mean, but if you put it in a filament dryer, which I do have a single spool dryer, yeah, that straightens it out. It makes it supple again to where it doesn't do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a problem even with PLA. A filament dryer would come in handy, and I love the fact that this actually dries while it prints too. So it's got that going for it. So it's a really neat little system. Um, and I really liked what I saw in the reviews. I was really inclined to buy one, but I was concerned about some quality fade issues, like I talked about earlier. Um, so as a result, I'm just kind of holding off on this, but I may not buy this one now because I really need a big format printer. I've already got one that prints out this same size, about a 10 by 10 by 10, right? But I need one that can do 16 by 16. And the extra Z16 is nice too if I'm doing an actual enclosure. But I need a fast, large 3D printer to do that. There's only one on this list that's actually fast and large and really fast, especially with acceleration. So, again, I was looking at this, but this isn't a tool. This is a toy. It's print volume 6 by 6 by 6. I mean, for fuck, I can get an FDM. I mean, a damn resin printer, for that. And a lot of resin printers these days print at 150 millimeters an hour, and they have about that same build volume. So I can get any print for any size, uh, out of a resin printer at that rate in an hour. So, um, I mean, that's a nice print speed, but it's really not that impressive overall because I can kind of approach those same benefits with a resin printer. Um, However, if I was printing something that's 1 inch by 1 inch by 6 inches tall on a resin printer, well, that would still take an hour, whereas this thing would probably do that a lot faster, right? So, you had to take your use case into account there, obviously. But at any rate, I mean, this is fast, but again, and fairly big, but that's still too small for my needs. But, I still like the printer I settled on. You know, some of these I wasn't even seriously considering. I was just curious. That's a Delta printer and supposedly pretty fast, but I don't know enough about Delta printers to even seriously consider them just yet. Um, it's a filament dryer. This is a couple of. I'm not really seriously looking at buying a resin printer new right now, but because I still haven't got that whole system figured out yet. So I still am not sure how to get the stickiness off the prints really good. So yeah, I got a lot more experimenting to do with that kind of technology before I buy another printer. Um, let's see. This one I wouldn't really seriously consider, but this as a high volume printer, this is what I'm sold on. But it's only like 3 months old. It's only been out there for 3 months. There's like next to no actual reviews on it. So you say this, oh, it's got 1,400 reviews, right? Well, no, it doesn't. It has 1,400 reviews on this printer, but also this printer and this printer too. So the reviews are all jumbled together. So there really are no reviews on this printer at all. They just put it in here to make it look like the, or this isn't even from the Creality store. In fact, they don't sell this store from Creality, direct from Creality on here. So you can go to the Creality store and see that. Hell, they hardly have anything. Um, Even this one, is this from Creality? Uh, no, that's not the official Creality store. This is somebody trying to make you think they are. So, like I said, keep in mind there's a lot of dodgy bullshit. I mean, I should make a whole video, and kind of did, that 2 hour video I made originally, but I didn't record most of, had a lot of the shenanigans in detail on Amazon. Not just for 3D printers, but for everything. It's a shame I didn't record anything but 7 minutes of it. But nobody would watch it anyway. But this is the printer. This has got really beefy stepper motors, and its default print speed is 500 millimeters, whereas normally a printer that's like a 600 millimeter print speed, the default speed is 300. So that tells you what they're comfortable with. Here it's 500. I mean, holy shit. And it's got 20,000 millimeter squared acceleration on top of that. So it's a fast 3D printer. It's more industrial grade though. It's really super loud. It's got super beefy stepper motors on it. Which you can kind of tell these are long stepper motors, and it'll shake your table like crazy while it prints. But boy, if you want to print large stuff with a 3D printer like this, 16 by 16, by 16 build volume, yeah, you better have a fast printer. Otherwise, you could spend a week trying to do a print. And I can't conceive of that. That would be completely useless to me. But noise, I can just set that in some remote room and, let it rip. Um, because I've seen people, print out like cosplay helmets that take up practically this whole print volume, and they do it in like less than 30 hours. So on this printer, and they're going to go with a higher print quality than I would, because they're doing it for appearance. I'm doing it for functionality more often than not. Like a closure, I just need to print a box, right? I can have loose tolerances on it, so I don't really need tight tolerances on it, so I can actually, up the print speed, on my prints, and take full advantage of this kind of speed. So this is a printer I want to buy. I just for large volume stuff, but I just don't. I don't see the reviews yet, because it's only been out here for 3 months. There are reviews on YouTube, and I looked this up on Quora, and they say there's a ton of tweaking you got to do to even get this thing to work. So, and it takes over an hour just to put the thing together. So, and given the fact that, like I said, I don't really need a large printer for at least another 6 or 8 months. So this would mostly just sit around in a corner. So what if it's going to fail? If I actually needed it, I might find out in 2 weeks the thing craps out on me, of actual use. But I'm going to just run like an hour's worth of tests on the thing, or a few hours worth of tests, and then I'm going to put it in a corner, and it'll just be in my way for 8 or 9 months. So I won't find out if I bought a dud, for maybe a year. So that's why I'm really skeptical, but that's why I went with the Bambu Labs, because its reputation precedes me, or precedes it. I mean, it's gonna, and it was on sale for $90 too. Even though it's more expensive than the other printer I was looking at that did the same thing. That Anycubic. It's more expensive and not as fancy looking, but it will do good quality, and it is fairly easy to assemble. The assembly video is right here. Yeah, I mean, I can get it up and running, probably in 30 minutes or so, because I said 40 minutes up to through your first print. So 47 minutes is what some people reported. So it's pretty easy to set up, and and it does. It looks quite simple, and it's a good video too. So this is the one I chose because I know I'm not going to use it for a while, but I want to make sure I'm more likely to have bought a good printer with these guys than anybody else, given the fact I don't need one right now, and it's those Trump tariffs is the only reason I'm really even considering this right now. But I bought a ton of shit that I wouldn't have bought yet because of the fucking Trump tariffs. So that's been really aggravating. But anyway, but yeah, I was also looking at this. Anycubic also had a Cobra 3 Max, which is press and print volume, not as high speed, and way cheaper, you know. But again, if I'm after print volume, this is the one I need to go for, even though it may have to be tweaked a lot. I don't know. So I'm still not sure of that, but boy, I'm really inclined to go with this one, given how I want to use it. But this might have been a close second, but man, if you actually look into the ratings, it ain't rated too well. So that's what's unfortunate. And, in this one, hell, it had the advantage of that same print system that this comes with, right? Because again, this is what I really wanted to buy. I just really thought it was slick, but it wasn't on sale at all. So, despite Father's Day and everything else, it wasn't on sale at all. But this has the same filament system with it. But again, all these reviews covers this printer too, as it turns out. So, it's not just a review for this printer, but it's a review for this one, and this one, and this one. So, these aren't reviewed, so the reviews are really pretty bad on them. So, unfortunately, even though it has a large print volume, so, you know, but, but anyway, that's why I kind of passed on that. But I just know really, this is the most speed you're going to get out of a printer this big for this kind of budget range, anywhere near in the near future. I mean, it'll be years before they have some breakthrough that makes them faster than this. So this will have some good mileage on it if the thing works, and it's supposedly fairly well built. But I'm just going to wait till Prime Day, and maybe I'll make another decision on it. Maybe there'll be a few reviews on this thing. So right now there are really none on Amazon. That makes me nervous, particularly since none of these are being sold from Creality. That's not Creality. Um, and this isn't Creality. So these may be units that somebody sent back that were defective, and they boxed them and resold them as new. I've had that happen to me so much time on Amazon. You think you're buying something new, no, it's actually used, but they still paid a new price for it. And you look at the vendor, no, it was some other vendor that did that, not the manufacturer. So, yeah, I mean, these vendors can be really dodgy. There's all kinds of bullshit that goes on Amazon. If it weren't for the fact that they have a 30-day return window, and it was so easy to return stuff to Amazon, you just have to take it to a UPS store. I mean, I wouldn't shop on Amazon because there's just so much dodgy shit going on here. But then again, you buy something from like Best Buy. Well, you got a 15-day return window, not a 30-day window, and Best Buy is like 8 or 10 miles away from me. Versus the fucking UPS store is like a mile and a half away from me. So yeah, and I got to go through all the goddamn traffic out there. In that area of town, there's just shitloads of traffic. It's just I never like going out there. So yeah, I mean it's a real pain in the ass. I do not like buying things from Best Buy for those two reasons. But not just Best Buy, almost everybody you buy from in town, and Walmart or whoever has got a 15-day return window. So, I mean, it's horseshit. It used to be 30 days, and then they started dicking around. But it's no wonder companies like Amazon are putting all those fucking, big box store, brick and mortar stores out of business because of policies like that. No, I should have 30 days to return anything, anywhere. So, but because it's federal law on the internet, it's 30 days. You know, hey, as long as that's true, yeah. I mean, I'll be shopping on the internet more than the box stores any day because I usually don't mind not getting things. But I will say going to Best Buy is nice because for certain things because it's nice to be able to actually handle things and look at them. But at any rate, but that's pretty much my 3D printer review and why I'm buying the printer I'm buying. But I'm still looking for more printers, so there may be an addendum to this review, in a month or maybe I won't buy one until Black Friday or something. But I am definitely going to buy at least one more 3D printer, and I really am really wanting to buy this one, even though it might be a pain in the ass, according to the core reviews. But maybe some of that shit will be ironed out by the time I actually buy one. So, because it's still a really new printer, it's only been out there 3 months. That's why there's hardly any reviews. So, but again, I'll get back to you on that. But for right now, yeah, um, this is what I went with, and that'll at least give me the functionality. It's a good replacement for my Robo 3D R1. So it's just that's like 5 times faster. So there's that, and it can do multicolor, and it should be reliable, and it can do really high quality prints right out of the box if I need them. So, because there are times I do, if I'm doing something that involves gears, that mesh together and everything. Yeah, you want a higher quality print to do stuff like that. So I've never really successfully printed out gears on Robo 3D because you got to really tweak the shit out of it to improve its quality. So, but still, right out of the box, it pretty much did what I needed it to do, and so for the most part, I've been really happy with it. But I do want an upgrade, and that's what this represents. But I am going to buy at least one more 3D printer in the near future, but it might not be for 8 months, like 6 or 8 months when I actually need it. But I don't know. We'll see. So, anyway, cheers.